And what I'm going to talk about is really organic soil fertility for greenhouse, high tunnels, and for greenhouses and high tunnels. So as you said earlier, I use this word loosely, greenhouses. It's some kind of a protected structure, and there's a whole continuum, and it's actually kind of amazing that we have all these people growing so many crops, making all this money, that have no idea what they're doing with fertility. And I am one of them. I think I'm getting a little better, but the point is, it's a black box. So I know Lou was saying he throws the stuff in and hopes for the best. It seems to work. How many other people are doing that or advising people that way? So it's actually, I continue to be struck by how we have such data in certain areas of what we do and other things we're flying blind. And the reason we've gotten away with it is the organic system is so buffered that lets us have a lot of wiggle room with what's actually in there. And certainly with tomatoes, which are basically big hardy weeds, they can put up with it. So in Vermont, the census says it's over a $2 million industry, just the tomato part. And by now, I know we're probably pushing up on many times that with all the greenhouse vegetables. So, we've gone undercover to extend the season, but a lot of it is improving the quality. Then you see quality issues come up because of improper nutrition. And the thing with the yield, and I'm talking to Lou about that too, you could be losing 10 or 15 or 20% yield, you never know it. And I find that people have sort of improved their management and see their yields go up and they're surprised. So essentially we're talking about a soil-based culture with various amendments added, compost, aged manures, some kind of organic fertilizers. And I think the standard operating procedure is throw in a bunch of compost every year, fill it in, and then people seem to have developed their own recipes. Oh, I use this much blood and azomite and this and that to try and nail them down and why. No idea, really. So there's a lot of variability to what we'll put in there. So even if you say well-made compost or aged manure, no two batches are alike. People aren't testing this either, so it just continues to exacerbate the black box situation. We don't know what we have to start with, and we don't really know what we're putting in. So it's really a challenging thing, especially when you look at the other method of production. Hydroponics, showed a slide, is one of the most precise nutrient management systems in the world. I mean, you go up to southern Canada, they are testing the water in every row twice a day for all of the chemical and nutrient attributes and adjusting it. So it's actually really striking that the same crop's being grown so differently. So growers do different things. They look at the crop, which is good. The problem is, well, there's two problems. One is by the time you see problems, you've already lost yield or stress, plants are out quality. And it takes a real skilled operator to see the nuances and to see that, oh, those plants are getting a little bullish, dense at the top, the nitrogen's a little too high, or the color's a little off, or the angle. And so this is Mike Collins, and one thing, he's in real communication with the growers in southern Quebec, and they have a very sophisticated group system of communicating and have documented things about how to understand the vegetative versus generative nature of the plant, and if they're bigger or not by the angle of the flower clusters and things like that. But one of the challenges with our growers is they're so diversified. There's too many crops to get into that level of management attention to an individual. Even though a typical house like this, you're going to pull $20,000 worth of product out of it, you would think get a little more attention. The other issue, of course, is a supercharged growing environment. It's really very little like the field. There's so much more biomass produced, not just the yield itself, but a huge amount of plant material grown really fast, and doesn't really work to use the same tools we use in the field to manage. This is fussy, isn't it? So it looks good, smells good, tastes good. Is it any good? Well, those tests are, it does help to, does it have good friability? You can sort of get a sense of the textural. Boy, if you smell ammonia or something, you know something's off. So I'm not saying those are useless, but not very insightful. And many growers were using what they were familiar with, which was the field soil test. The problem is, early on this makes sense when it still was a field soil. You just put up the tunnel, maybe you did a slight amendment. It would have been the same thing where you would have done to put in your field tomatoes. But once you've been growing in that house for a number, 3, 5, certainly more years than that, it's no longer a field soil. And what happens is these tests come back, everything's off the charts. So in Vermont it says excessive, in Mass it says very high, but your bar charts are telling you don't need to add anything else. And you're not getting the measures of things. Discussion, or I guess I'm curious if people have used, has anybody here used a schmutzer? I know I've actually seen them used up in Quebec and south of Montreal years ago. So I know Rob's writing stuff down. He's ready to go get one. So.
You can probably borrow it from the University of Maine if you really wanted to.
I'd wash it off first.
Definitely wash all your equipment before you share it, but I would inquire if you really were interested in trying it.
Oh, we have enough weeds on our farm today. Senior seminar, weed identification.
I had a question for you about that machine. You said everybody's smiling, but when I watched that one on the back end, how to control that, I thought that must be killer. Very tiring.
It's got what was the word? Hydraulic steering. So it's not that hard. And
You have to pay attention.
It's 6
You
miles
do have
an
to
hour
pay
in the field.
attention.
That's
It
great.
looks like it'd be a fun job to me.
What's the average wheat farm size in Maine?
they're not very large. I mean, our research has been targeting organic dairy farmers that have access to more broader acreage, but Matt Williams, I don't think he has, more than 100 acres of wheat. It's not very much. They're not big farms, but still, I mean, and his field size is probably, he's got a bunch of fields. But, they're no bigger than 3 or 4 acres at a time. But again, I wouldn't want to be doing, 20 acres on that thing. That would be not pleasant. But for doing my pots, it was fine.
Has anybody had any experience with corn gluten as a natural herbicide? I mean, they sell it as an herbicide. You have to get non-GMO corn gluten, which is possible to get.
I found it works better as fertilizer for the wheat.
Yeah, it also is.
The thing is, if you look at the pot studies, the rates that are effective are really high, getting into a ton or better per acre. So it's not just price, but now you're applying a lot of nitrogen or slow release nutrients, so and not always work out.
So we attempted to use elongated flat calls. They loved it. Basically, it wasn't a magical.
Well, it's a seed germination inhibitor. It's not so you're if you're putting that on and you've got quackgrass, so just making it worse. Any other questions or comments? Well, if not, be sure to fill out your piece of paper, and we'll thank our panelists again.